Welcome to Feel Good Talk, where our focus is on mind, body, soul, and business. You are now tuning in to Let's Talk About It with your girl Izzy Meditates and your girl Kendra Moore. Hi, Kendra.
What's up? What's up, everyone? What's up, Izzy?
Hello. Hello from the foothills of Virginia to Florida. How's it going?
Yes. Hello to the sunny Palm Beach, laced Palm Beach, palm tree laced
I
Orlando.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And your outfit is screaming. It's just like it's so
Thank
Florida
you.
and palm. It's nice. I love it.
Thank you, girl. It's hot and humid. That's what this is.
Yeah.
But it's nice. I really am getting used to like getting a little bit back into my routine, waking up early. I need to get up at 5:30. I've been getting up at 6 and then being out around 6:45 to
Yeah.
like work out, run, jog. I have a goal that I want to do a 5K.
Ooh,
So yeah, so I'm kind
nice.
of starting back jogging again. And let me tell you, I am drenched by the
Yeah.
end because of the humidity, but it feels so good. And you can't complain when you're like jogging by, the nice scenery. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So are you close to the beach? Have you gone to the beach yet? Or since
I've
you've been
not
there?
gone to the beach. I am
Uh-huh.
not close to the beach. Well, if you consider close, I think about an hour and a half or hour 45
That's not
minutes.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not a huge beach person,
Yeah.
but I'll go now that like Florida beaches are so much different than Delaware beaches.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it may make a beach queen out of me. We'll see.
Yeah. We're about, oh my goodness, we're 4 hours away from the beach, from
Right?
Virginia Beach. I'm sure there's like smaller beaches around here that I've never been to, but yeah, we're a little ways away from the
Yeah,
beach.
cool. And before we jump in our topic,
Yeah.
what's been going on with you?
Just working, trying to get some things into to motion. A good friend of mine and I are launching a clothing line, and so we've been like
What?
vibing
Woo
off of
woo.
each other, yeah, and trying to like get that together. And I'm excited because he's just like, we're doing this August the 11th. Well, I'm doing it August 11th, and I said, you know what? I'll jump on board because I've been procrastinating. So this will
Right,
get some fire underneath me. So I've been
right.
pushing to get that all straightened out, and it's kind of good because my kids will start school August 23rd. So
Okay.
I'll just go into that and go into teaching meditation. So that's what's been going on like this week. I am deep.
Awesome. That's exciting. I can't wait to see. We all can't wait to see.
Yes, I'm
You'll have to
excited.
do a debut on
Yes.
the show.
We'll have like a soft launch that's going to be on August 11th. So you'll be hearing about that. I am so excited. I'm nervous at the same time
Right,
because you know when you're an entrepreneur and you're on your own, you don't have a team per se. It's
right.
just you.
Yeah.
So you're like, I run some things by myself and I'm like, well, that might work and then maybe it won't, but we're going to try it out.
Yep. Solopreneur. It's all about trying things and growing. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll figure it out. So I'm excited about today's topic.
Me
I've
too.
actually taken a few classes in this, and today we're going to be talking about happiness. What is true happiness, and what does happiness mean to you? Um,
Yes.
we had observed a video by Robert Waldinger, and he's a psychiatrist and professor at Harvard Medical School, and he has a grant study that has I think it's 724 men. Why he didn't study women, I don't know, but he studied them for 75 years. And this is a long time to study,
Yep.
one person, following them through life, through, early childhood, teen, young adult, and until you're older. And so his study is trying to figure out happiness and how it's obtained. But he didn't just study the people, he like took their labs, and I mean it was really like deep.
Yes. Yes.
Deep.
And then I'll just do a slight correction. So he's like the fourth person that's leading the project because the project started in
Oh wow.
1938. So
Wow.
they
That's
started
right.
in 1938,
Yeah.
actually following two groups of males, white
Yeah.
males. One group was a group that was like from Harvard. I
Yeah.
think they were sophomore at the time. when they started, and then they graduated, and at the end of during World War II, and some of them went off to war, and then the other group of people that he studied, or that the study entails, are like a group of men who are from the poorest neighborhoods. Some of them didn't have water, hot water, cold water, from Boston. And so he's actually like the fourth person that's leading the study. And I think this is the longest study that has been done on following like what they call cohorts of individuals through their entire lifetime. Because a lot of studies, what he mentioned, start, and then the person who started the study dies or something, and no one
when he
picks it
said
up.
that, I was like, what?
So it's really, really interesting. So how do you want to do this, Izzy, to start jumping into the study?
The first thing I want to go over, I guess, because 75 years is a long time. 724 men are a lot. And basically, he said the clearest message that he got from the study for 75 years was a good relationship keeps us happier and healthier, meaning the relationships that they were involved in. And then he put period, like that's it. This is the key to happiness, is having these, awesome relationships. I thought it was interesting that he was able to study both people who were less fortunate and people who were fortunate, to see how, they reacted to happiness. I think relationships have a big thing to do with happiness and keeping you healthier. But I also think that there's many other things. I think that I had taken a note here that for me, happiness is a continuous battle, because I'm fighting with what I was conditioned to believe would make me happy versus what should truly make me happy. So I guess that's my starting point. We've been conditioned to think that once we graduate college, we'll be happy. Okay, I did that. Once we, get our first job, we'll be happy. Yep, did that. Was happy like a week. After the second week, I was really you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, well, then once you get married, you'll do that. Oh, did that. Okay. And then it's when you have children, and it goes on and on and on. And then you get to this middle age, and I'm speaking for myself, part in your life where you're like, okay, all the happiness that I was told that I was going to have, I'm grateful, I'm thankful for that. But what is true happiness?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. Well, because me and you're going to really get into this, and I'm excited about it. So before I say my piece of it, let's say hi to the people with some comments. Yes, we have some comments.
We like comments. We like people's. We have Breon Nichols in the house. Hello. He says, "What's up, Queens?" Hi,
What's up, Breon? Thanks for joining us.
In. Charles Brakely says, "Good evening, ladies." Hello, Charles.
Good evening, Charles.
Charles also says the main thing is to get started.
Yes, that was on your t-shirt business.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. I know, right?
not being perfect.
Jean Kelly says, Jean is watching. Hello, beautiful lady. So excited to see you both. So excited.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, no, getting started. I started a long time ago, and then I just kind of put it on the back burner. And I was like,
you know how it is. That's the ebbs and flows of life. So going back to the study. So one of the things that he said is that they did also a study of millennials, kind of recently, and this is going back, Izzy, to your point about what are the things that make you happy, or that you're conditioned to believe will bring you happiness. And in the study of millennials, greater than 80% said, when they asked them what would kind of bring them happiness, greater than 80% said that their main goal was to get rich. And then over 50% said to become famous. So it's and you can imagine, especially now with social media and how easy it is to get attention, on social media. And then he also talked about, how we're conditioned to really lean into work and achieve more. So I agree with you. It is one of these things where, you are conditioned to, like you said, graduate and then get a job and then get married and then have kids and then get a house and then, all of these things that kind of are defined by our society as, well, if you have these things, then you should be happy.
Right,
But
right,
we know, even if you look at the state of, I don't know, mental struggles that people have, that's not the case. Because if that was the case,
right.
then I think we will see more people not struggling as much.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree. And what I like about his study, well, I think two things hit me. One is I had also listened to this previous talk about how we chase so many things, but really we need to focus it on, as a state of being, right? Versus trying to have external things that makes us happy. So that I appreciate. And then the other thing, like we talked about the beginning with this study, is relationships. And I do feel like there are other things, of course, that make us happy and that are meaningful. So it's not to say that your job isn't meaningful or your family isn't meaningful or etc.
Right.
But having really good, strong relationships. So what was interesting to me is that when we talk about this man did the study, like they studied these people since 1938. They looked at medical records, brain scans, they interviewed families, they send these guys like surveys every year to have them answer questions about their lives. They talk to their kids, their wives. So, I mean, this is really comprehensive what they did. And to have the key lesson learned is the relationships. That's, so that was like, I was like, wow, I was not expecting that for some reason. Yeah.
Actually, when I read it, I went back and he was just like, relationships. I'm like, really? And I know it has a huge part, because I've seen couples or just people who have been friends forever. We have 2 friends that are in this community, and they are just the sweetest things. I can't remember their names, but they have these little carts and they ride around together. And when I don't see one and the other is missing, I'm like, where's your friend? Like, you guys are always together. And though they have a disability of some sort, they just always seem to be happy and in a good mood and like willing to talk to each other. And they're not related in any kind of way. I think that they're just like friends or either neighbors, but they go to the store together, and I think, in friendships and relationships, I've seen people who are happy in that sense too, of just being together. And he had stated that even if they were at odds, at some point in time in their life, that when they stayed together, they still were, they still had a great relationship, and this had contributed to their happiness. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, he said it was that element of trust in that relationship. That even if they bickered every day, if someone had that element of trust for the other person, that they ended up being happier. And I was like, wow. And it's interesting, Izzy, because it's kind of like what you and I always talk about, the simple things, right? Like we think it's all this complicated stuff, but it boils down to relationships. And I'm looking at my cheat sheet here, and he talked about social connections, right? So he said that people who are in toxic relationships, he said the people who loneliness kills. That's what he said. Loneliness kills. And people who choose to be kind of lonely, they are more toxic. They have more health issues. And even in their brain scans show like, less, I guess, activity or however you measure the health of brains. But then he talked about the quality of the relationships. So, a lack of affection if you're talking about a romantic relationship. But this is what blew my mind. He said the people that they followed, people with who were most satisfied with their relationships at the age of 50 were the most healthiest at the age of 80.
I know.
And I was like, what?
I know.
Yeah.
it blew my mind because I've shifted so much in my life, and my friends have shifted because I moved. You know what I mean? I moved a
Right.
lot and changed different schools and went to different jobs. And so sometimes we don't keep the same friends. And I'm like, wow. So people who have kept the same relationships and friendships or even marriages are benefiting from this at an older age. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do
Yeah.
you think it's keeping the same ones, or do you think it's the fact that they have quality relationships? So because I think through the ebbs and flow of life, people are gonna drop off.
Right.
But then it's kind of like, are you replacing those people with quality people?
Right.
So it wasn't as much. It was kind of the length of the relationship, but he really focused on the quality of the
Quality.
relationship and the
Yeah.
affection and the way people interacted with each other. And it wasn't just romantic relationships, but
Right.
friendships. And he also talked about family relationships.
Yeah.
Right. So how it's really not worth to hold on to family grudges, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the
That's on
two or however many people that's involved in this family conflict, you're doing
right.
yourself a disservice, both from a relationship size, but from your own health. And people
Right.
don't think about that when it comes to, and we're so quick. I know I am, but we're so quick to like cut people off.
Snip, snip.
You know what I mean?
Where's my scissors at? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. Whoever's out there watching. Let's see. We have a couple of comments.
I think it's now that I'm older, I'm just like, dude, I just ain't got time for it.
Yeah, and I think that's healthy.
Shayna
Shayna
Gordine
Gordine,
says, hey, Shayna, good to
what's
see
up,
you.
Shayna?
How are
Thanks for joining
you?
us.
Charles Brakely says it's the quality over quantity. It
Yes.
is. It really is. And so that brings back. So I come from a small town where everybody knows everybody, and we all kind of grew up together. And so my personal feelings are because I moved away. I'm cool with everybody, but I'm not as close as
Right.
people who are still in that same particular town. And so for me, having a friend from kindergarten on up is quality. I feel like having a friend now is quality, but not as the same as someone who has known you since you were a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they know your parents, they know your family, they know where you come from. You guys had the same experiences together, and that's not to say that you can't have a quality relationship with someone else, but I feel like that would be stronger, and that would add to the benefit of being happy and healthy.
I think that would be the case if that other person was kind of brought something to the relationship.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of people who are connected with people from their childhood that they really need to get rid of. You know, you know what I'm saying? Because we all know people who we're connected to, and they're really like, they bring you down. They're negative. They don't want to see you grow. They're like, oh, you're trying to be like X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, my perspective is, it's not, for me, at least personally, I do have some really close friends that we have been friends since high school. That's the furthest back my friendships go. And I feel like, we don't talk. We might talk twice a year, but then when we talk, we are immediately connected.
Right.
And then I have people who I was friends with, and I just like, nope, I don't want, since high school, and you don't want to invite them into your life because maybe they have not grown and they're going to be pulling you down. So so I think it's that. For me, it's not, longevity is maybe a part, but it's not the whole thing. It's really about,
Yeah. I want to spotlight this. I think and I don't think we addressed it yet, but he says, and we know that you can be lonely in a crowd, because we were talking about loneliness, and you can be lonely in a marriage. So the second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have. It's not whether or not you're committed in a relationship, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matters. It turns out that living in the midst of conflict is really bad for your health. I say work conflict, family conflict, neighbor conflict. I think all those things can have a huge effect. High conflict marriages, for example, without much affection, turn out to be very bad for your health, perhaps worse than getting divorced. That's crazy. And the living in the midst of good, warm relationships is protective. And I personally believe I can see that in people right away.
Yeah.
I can see that in people who are married when they have a good relationship versus when things aren't going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or any kind of, even in a household, mother daughter, father son kind of relationship, you can kind of tell the difference in the vibe of happiness. But that is really deep. Like,
It is really deep. And I think some people, I mean, good for you if you can tell. I think some people hide it. You know,
yeah,
have this, this, oh, we're the perfect couple and yada yada. Our family is perfect, but you don't know what's really going on inside someone's
yeah,
household.
right,
But to your point, I've definitely been around couples where I can really, really tell that they appreciate each other, they love each other, they're
right.
friends. You know what I mean? And then there's those couples where I'm like, girl, run. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, like, what are you like? Like, you guys do not need to be together. We have some comments. Let's go to the comments and see what the
That's
people are
funny.
saying.
Charles Berkeley says, get rid of anything that's toxic. Sometimes that's family as well. It's true.
Yes, it is.
It is true. Gwendolyn Tolliver says there are different levels of friendships. I think so too. I believe so too. William Dickerson says transparency can be very, very helpful. Definitely.
Mhm.
William Dickerson also says, hello, Izzy, Kendra. Let's talk about it. Feel good
What's
talk.
up,
It's
Will?
live.
Have you
Thanks
guys
for tuning in.
tune into his show After Hours at 8:30? So we have
Yes.
2 shows happening tonight. So make sure you guys, after our show, grab something to drink, go to the restroom, and then come right back.
Yes.
Come right
We
back
got
for his show. So.
back to back goodness tonight.
Yeah.
We gonna
So,
binge.
the other thing that he talked about was that the people who were in happy relationships on the days that they had physical pain, because his point was it's not that, you're not going to get sick, right? But on the days that they had physical pain, their mood was just as happy, as opposed to the people who are in unhealthy relationships. When they had physical pain, their mood was like kind of amplified towards the negative.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was also interesting because, yeah, I mean, we're all going to go through something. And, wouldn't it be great if you're able to go through something and you're in a relationship or you have relationships around you that allows you to kind of keep that kind of levity, that lightness, that good mood. And not to say that you'll never be down, but it sure beats, going through the pain and also being emotionally miserable, because we know that there's a connection between your emotions and your healing, so that's also scientific.
Yeah. And that connection, it reminds me of this documentary that I saw. And this couple, they had to be like in their hundreds, but they had been doing the same thing. Like when they got to the point where they were so old they couldn't really move. Every day they did the same thing together. They had breakfast together. They had lunch. The certain type of snack. She would always cut it up for him and put it on his plate. And it
Right.
was so cute. And then the family would come over, the children, they would visit them. And if I can recall it right, one of them had passed away and the other one would just had become weak after that. They had been so energetically connected. And even
Right.
though they had ailments, like you said, they were happy. And that
Right.
made them healthy regardless of the things that were going on in their body. And they moved around and they would help each other and do their little exercises. I think to have that connection, and they were really old. I'm thinking 105 if I can post this documentary on it, but to see them to just get to work together despite the fact that they had ailments until one passed away and then the other one was just too weak to go on. He had missed her terribly and it was
Aww.
just really, yeah.
Now, on the flip side of this, he didn't talk about this, but one of the things that I thought of after I was kind of like meditating on all this, all of what he said, is, I think about like our community, right?
Mhm.
So I think about our community and the links, you go to some communities that are really high poverty rates, and then what is often associated with that? Often
Yeah.
high health risk, outcomes.
Yeah.
So, diabetes and heart attacks and, really mental illness and etc. So, I started thinking about it even broader in terms of communities
Right.
and how communities operate, and then looking at those types of health statistics. And yeah, and it's hard to tell, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but we
Mhm.
both know that an egg comes from a chicken. So you
Right.
know that there, so you know that there's that relationship there between the health and your, emotional well-being. And then
Right.
I think, we don't pay attention to that enough, as well as we also know that what you put in your body, from a health standpoint, will also impact you emotionally. And then if
Right.
you put that on top of living in an area that might have high crime, now you're stressed out. And
Right.
now you're probably not having relationships where you feel like you can trust people,
Right.
right? So, all of that. And then you look at, again, the health statistics, and then like your, what is it called? Lifespan.
Right.
And in these communities, the lifespan is shorter.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. That makes me, when I first moved here, I remember like just being, it's so crazy because coming from a small town, we all knew each other. Our families knew each other. We would go to the corner store, we knew people. Like we got joy into going to Arcus store and getting a pickle, or we had joy into going to Giorgio's pizza and like hanging out. And I had all of those things and that sense of community. But when I
yeah,
moved to Virginia, that was gone. Now, mind you, they may have had their own sense of community, but because I wasn't born and raised here and I was in Northern Virginia, which is Reston, Virginia, it was a high turnover rate for neighbors. Like literally, people were in government or they were, traveled with their company. And so I would have one neighbor and I'd be like, cool, I got this relationship. And then boom, well, we're moving in 6 months. And so I
right,
felt my quality of life um, going down, and I felt sad, and I would call my mom and my dad all the time because I wanted to have the same sense of community that I had living in Chester versus living in Virginia. Now, mind you, it was beautiful and things were, big buildings and these nice apartments, but I didn't have that sense of community. And I would always tell my parents that I was like, it's not the same. I can't go down to the corner store and not really want to buy anything and just hang out and talk
right.
trash. You know what I mean?
No,
I
you'll get
can't.
arrested.
Yeah.
They'll call the cops.
They were like, "Why are you here?" Matter of fact, there's probably
Yes, yeah,
signs
yeah.
that said no loiter. You know what I mean? It's not the same.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same. But I
Well,
had to,
it's true. Like, I think,
yeah, I had to find things to
oh,
do.
go ahead, go ahead.
I had to find things to do to keep my mind off of that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I still
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a little bit better than it was before. Now that I have kids and stuff like that, I feel we all keep in touch, and we have Facebook and social media. So, but yeah,
yeah. And I think about that too with, you think back to like my parents and, their parents, and you hear a lot of people say like, when we grew up, we didn't have anything, but,
right,
we were happy, because
right,
there was such a strong sense of community back then, to where, and you look back then and people did live longer,
yeah,
or at least they were healthier. I think statistically we might be living longer, but we're less healthy.
yeah,
So that means the quality of our years is not good. So what's the point of living longer if you're not kind of living healthy and vibrantly and enjoying those years, in my opinion. But
right,
but yeah, and the other thing it made me think of were like kids in these homes where there are a lot of conflict, in the communities where there are a lot of conflict, and what is this doing to their health? You know what I
right,
mean? So, and they don't
right,
have any control over, we have more control over who we hang out with or whatever, but you don't have control over who your parents bring into the house,
right,
type of thing. So,
right. And
yeah,
not having to like when we were younger, we stayed out a lot and we developed these relationships and we were outside or doing something that was outside. But I've noticed that in these subdivisions, like I didn't even know we had kids here. One where
Yeah.
they came out on the bus stop, and I was like, "What? Where do they live?" Because they don't come outside and they don't relate to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And parents don't push their kids out to do these things. We're missing all of that, and again, that has an effect on a child's brain development as well as their physical and mental health. If you're not going out as much, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot.
Definitely. Now, one of the things, because I'm with you, Izzy, I've kind of moved around kind of as a kid, but what I've learned as an adult, and here recently, like, okay, so now I've relocated to Orlando. Now, what is it that I need to do to get connected to people? And I think
Right.
there's an opportunity to leverage social media. I mean, even when I was in Delaware, I met some great people through meetup groups and
Yeah.
et cetera. So there are ways to kind of get connected if it depends. Of course, if you're in a larger place, you have more diversity of,
Right.
communities that you can connect with. But I think the point being is that connection is really important. Now, the other thing he said is that good relationships protect our brain.
Wow.
And the people who felt like they had someone that they could count on, their memory stayed sharper longer.
Wow. Yeah.
So
I remember him saying that, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, just knowing that the trust, like, you know how we always talk about trust. Trust is everything. If you feel like you can trust and you can depend on that person, it lightens the load. You don't feel
right,
that burden. You're not carrying that on your shoulders, on your back, and thinking you have to do everything. And your mind is constantly going because you know you have that support system. And it just reminds me of power couples that I know that work together. You know what
right.
I mean? And it's
Yep,
friendships even. You know, I could give a good example. My mom, when she comes to visit, I don't have to say a word. I cook, she wash dishes. She cook, I wash dishes. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yep,
I wash the clothes, she fold, and it just happens. It's like a rhythm. And when
right,
she's here, I feel great because I know that this is going to happen. She's not going to eat and just leave the dishes for me to do. We work as a team, and that
right.
lightens when she's here for that week. That makes me feel like, wow, I can lighten the load a little bit. I don't have to worry about that. And I'm sure my health, and if they took my vitals and my heart rate, everything would be great. No high BP or
Yeah, your blood pressure and everything down.
yeah, my skin is glowing and on and popping, everything.
That's awesome. So those were that was one of the main topics. Now we have
Yeah.
some in the news topics that we
Oh
also
yeah.
wanted to talk about. And Izzy, I'll let you start us off with that.
Oh yeah. And I wanted, before we go on to that subject, I had wanted to bring up a class that I had taken through Yale. It's called The Science of Well-Being, because
Ooh,
Dr. Robert Waldinger, he did a study with men, whereas though this Yale Science of Well-Being did a study overall. And it's really super deep. You can Google it online. My professor's name was Laurie Santos, and they really got into what made people happy in a younger group, but male and female. And it's amazing how we think getting a new car, getting a Jag, or getting this, even
yeah,
getting a degree from Yale would make you super happy when they did
right.
the statistics, and it wasn't so. They were
Yeah,
happy for a minimal amount of time, but then after that, they went back to being just as regular as everybody else and ready to move on to the next thing. So it's offered through Coursera if you go online, and it basically reveals the misconceptions about happiness. And I thought that it was a really good add on to that topic. And I think that's all I have for that one. But so do you want to bring up the topic that you want to talk about first? Because I really want to get into that one about Dr. Dre. That
okay.
is just
So now we're going to talk. So this is a transition into relationships,
yes.
family relationships, and we're talking about happiness and the quality of relationships. So, one of the things that came out on the news today was Dr. Dre's daughter, who's 38. She came out on the news and said, basically he hasn't given her money in a year, and just kind of like she's living in her car. She has 4 kids, and her kids aren't living in the car with her. They're living with friends, but she's living in the car. And so she's talking. So now, the conversations people have been talking about, okay, well, should he give her money? Should he help her out? You know,
Right.
that is his daughter, you know, after all. Those are his grandkids after all.
Right.
So, you know, this conversation is happening. And you know, it kind of goes into what we were talking about in terms of cutting people off that may be toxic or, you know,
Right.
not good,
Right.
so etc. And then this whole idea of obligation, you know, is
Yes.
he obligated? Like, are you obligated to help someone out if they're a family member? You know what I mean? So
Right. That's and I'm probably gonna get like a million and one comments about this. Maybe, maybe not. Your children can be toxic.
yeah,
Your
yeah,
children can be toxic. They can be tied up. Forgot I saw this meme or this video where the lady was putting her foot down and she was like, dude, I am not responsible for babysitting your kids because you had them. They're not supposed to come with me every weekend. That's for the daddy. The daddy comes get them every weekend. You keep them during the week, and I decide whether I want them to come or not when they, you know. And I understand that because that's his daughter, and I don't know the full situation. I just think that if he's given her and given her and given her, she's 38, that at some point you got to snip the umbilical cord and allow her to float on her own and figure out life on her own. Now, her being homeless, I understand. Maybe he could help on that end, but I don't think he should be fully responsible for her. I wouldn't
yeah,
want my to be fully responsible for my 38-year-old son or daughter, Cass or Caleb. You know what I mean? At one
right.
point, they should be able to go on their own, and then sometimes they get a little funky, and they think that they can do things on their own and say things, and you have to allow them to grow. So he's worth what, 800 million. That's a lot. When you put that as a headline, and then
Yeah,
underneath
yeah,
you say his daughter is homeless, people are going to be upset. But what's in between all that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah,
what's
we
in
don't know
between that?
what happened. And
Yeah.
apparently he cut her off this past year. So the last time she got money was like 2020. So he had been giving her money up until this time. So then the question is, you know, at some point, um, you have to take responsibility for yourself. What have you been doing with all this money? Because I'm
Right.
sure he was giving you more than $50, you know, a month. I'm sure he
Some
was like
gas
breaking
money.
her off something nice. So
Right.
what have you been doing? So I don't know if she has a drug background. I don't know if
Right.
she has a mental illness. It didn't, you know, they didn't say that in the article. So I'm not going to draw that conclusion.
Right.
You know, perhaps they had a falling out and he's, you know, going to cut her off. But at some point, it's like, well, when are you going to take responsibility? How long do you expect? And it goes the same to what you're saying, like people who move in and to their parents' house with, you know, these kids, and now the grandparents have to watch them, and
Right.
yet, like, how long do you want to put that weight on your parents, right?
Right.
Because they've already raised you. Now they should be enjoying their twilight years, so to
Right.
speak. So, you know, it's that sense. Let's get a couple of comments
Yeah. And
before we keep going.
it's having an effect on your longevity of life and your happiness and everything else. Yeah.
Yep.
Mary
Dr. Dre
Louise
was like,
says,
I'm
good
gonna live a
evening,
long
ladies and
time.
gents. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
Mary Louise.
Gwendolyn Tolliver says, no, you're not obligated. Yes.
Yeah.
It ruffles my feathers when I see like superstars taking care of their entire family. Now, mind you, if you guys live in the same house, that's cool, but have your means of, you know, making money at least, or a job or something, just to see them
Right.
responsible for the entire family. That's a lot. I mean, if you got like 10 people in your house, they're using your water, your electricity, your gas, you got to pay the mortgage, probably pay their car notes too. I don't agree with that. I just think that you can help out but so much, but then you got to teach them how's that saying go? You got to teach them how to fish on their own.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can live with
Yeah.
me, but and you may not have to pay a whole lot, but something to help out.
Yeah.
Something to
I
you can't,
agree.
be solely responsible for an individual. Yeah, so that's how I feel about that. And I think that there's probably something deeper, because when you have $800 million and you have four grandbabies and a daughter, you're not going to let them just kind of like float.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
It's just not natural. So for a
yeah,
parent to
yeah,
want to cut off a kid. So
Yeah.
But again, we don't know what it is. And like we were talking about earlier, in terms of toxic relationship, protecting your health, protecting your mental health, all of
Right.
that, sometimes you do have to cut people off. And sometimes those people are your family.
Right. And then he's going to be the bad guy anyway because he's in separation with his wife, right? So we have that whole thing going
Yeah.
on. That just came out like last week, and I'm just like, this poor guy, he won't get a break. So I'm sure other things will eventually come out, but I just feel that no one should be solely responsible for their family members. I think you should help them to a certain degree, and then they should be able to move on their own, or maybe,
Yeah.
like I remember when I worked for a tech company, and they had laid us off. They laid us all off, and they were just like, dude, we can't have you anymore. But you know what they did? They provided us with tools so we could go out and find our way. They didn't just leave us. You know what I mean? They're
Right.
like,
Right.
okay, hey, this is a consulting company. This consulting company is going to help you with your resume. It's going to help you with your image. It's going to help you with this. And then you're going to be able to go out and fly on your own. We're just not going to leave you stranded. Same thing with a parent. Same thing with a daughter who's taking care of a parent. Hey, I know you have this issue, drug abuse or whatever. I'm here to help you. But then you got to learn how to fly on your own. Because at
Yeah.
this point, they're enabling. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
allowing them to just like suck the life out of them, money wise, mentally, physically. It's a lot. It's a burden to have to worry constantly about stuff like that. So I'm totally, when we talk about that subject, I get so fired up because I'm like, dude, at one point you gotta like fly away or something.
Yeah. Or kick them out.
Or kick them out.
Fly away, or kick them out.
You got to go. Just leave and
Yeah,
never
and I
come
think
back.
too, and I am all for parents helping their kids, and especially I feel like kids nowadays maybe staying in with their parents, for a longer period of time,
Yeah.
before they have that kind of first moving out the house type of thing. I'm cool with that. I don't like, especially in our community, I think we have this thing of, well, I struggled, so if I did it, you can do it.
Right.
And nobody
Right.
helped me, so get out there and do it. And I personally don't agree with that mindset, because I feel like we should kind of lift each other up, even with your
Right.
kids. Like, yeah, even though you struggled and you got to where you were, like, I don't want my kid, like, I want to give them an advantage, because
Right.
so many things are working against them anyway.
Right.
Right. So why would I want them to start from, the very, very, very bottom, where I can kind of give them a little lift
Right.
and then let them fly? But
Right.
at the same time, I agree with you. Like, I think there's some point where, you just have to be careful and set that expectation. Otherwise, people are going to, family or friends or whatever, they're going to try to let you use you as much as they can. Um,
Yeah. That
yeah.
reminds me of MJ. You know MJ, the guy that we follow, because he's taking care of his nephew. And
Yes.
they were giving him a hard time, I think, about getting his nephew a car or something like that. And he was just like, he's doing what he's supposed to do. He got his license for insurance. He started his own company. He had made his first $10,000. Of course, I'm going to help him. I'm not enabling him, but I'm going to give him, like you said, I'm not going to
Yeah.
let him struggle at the bottom. I'm going to help him in some kind of way, but not in a way where I'm going to enable him to keep going and to keep learning and to keep moving. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But they
Yep.
were
Yep.
like on his case, like, oh, he's, spoiled and you're doing this and that for him. He's like, no, he had to
Yeah.
take the test. He took the test 3 times. Those insurance tests and real estate, that kind of stuff is difficult. To
Because
get
I
through.
always feel like people who speak negatively about that are secretly mad that they
Right.
didn't get that. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you're just jealous at the end of the day, or sad, you know what I mean? Or have some hurt feelings that you
Right.
didn't get that. So,
Right.
but
That's
hashtag not my problem. So let me do what I do.
hashtag not my problem. I got to use that one.
So what was our other
It was
topic
the
you wanted to
it
bring
was
up?
the truth though. The other topic, because I'd like to know, especially I want to hear from the audience. There's a lot of stuff going on about CBD and the legalization of weed, and I am interested to know what people think about CBD. It is everywhere you go, every corner. I've seen it. There's so many, different companies that are selling it. There's so many brands. And I just wanted to know, your thoughts on that and the audience. And Kendra, what do you think about this new thing? Like sometimes I wake
Right.
up and I'm like, dude, this is not real. Like I can't believe.
Yeah. Well, for the CBD,
Yes.
as a person who believes in, essential oils, right,
Right.
and plant medicine, from the CBD aspect, I definitely appreciate the fact that there are things in plants, right, that can help, heal our bodies.
Right.
So from that aspect, I don't have an issue with that. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna kind of end it there. So I don't have an aspect with that. I think, as for the other, there's, some people are
Mhm.
more responsible than others. So I'm just gonna leave that right there.
Yeah. I just
But
woke up and I'm like, my elders are probably like rolling over in their graves because these things that that were just forbidden
right,
before are now okay. And I'm with you because I believe that there are benefits from it for people who are sick and who are ill. And I believe that if we go back to the basics of using plants and things like that, that half of
right,
our ailments would be gone. And of course, you're gonna have people that are gonna like abuse it. But I think that it's good in the sense that it can help people with that. And I've seen it. They have it for dogs. I thought about getting some for Milo.
yeah, yeah. They do have. I have seen it for dogs. Your dog needs like a full case.
He needs like a full forget
'Cause
forget the lotion. Just light him up
yeah,
a
yeah,
full, like just let him
yeah. But it is interesting because
Yeah.
the other thing too is we kind of, I don't know, it's like you kind of get into the just looking at the history of how the history of the criminalization and
Right.
all that when it comes to the marijuana plant and the different aspects of the plant. But I find, just like with essential oils, just like with any natural medicine type of thing, people don't educate themselves. You know what I mean? They just read the headline, whether the headline is positive or the headline is negative, and
Yeah.
they just pick a side and that's it. So they
Yeah.
don't take the time to study to see, well, is this something that would be helpful? What's the other side? It's like,
Yeah.
on a lot of issues, we just pick a side and we stay there,
Right.
and we're just like, well, you're wrong. And then we don't take the time out to do, but if you
Right.
take the time out to research, then you'll find that, yeah, there are benefits, and those benefits are because of the certain chemicals in this plant, and that's,
Right.
and it works with your body in this certain type of way. But then the other thing too is, I kind of hate when things come on the market and then you see it everywhere, because then you have cheap versions. People are out there just to make money,
Yeah.
and then people will maybe have a bad reaction or say, oh no, it doesn't work, and we need to criminalize this because, and
Right.
so
Right.
it's a touchy subject. But
Yeah. It took a while for me to get used to it, like on my timeline, on my Instagram timeline, because I don't know where it was legal first, but I remember this person being in California and just like him like walking through and showing the plants and how they, take care of the plants and so
right,
forth. But I think that if you're going to choose to do CBD, that you definitely do your research and you get it from a reliable source. Because if you get it from someone who it's not harvested well, or it's not created well, there could be side effects. Because I think that there
yeah,
was like the Delta 8 that's out, and people are being sent to the hospital for using it because the wherever it was created, it wasn't created very well.
oh
um
wow,
so you
yeah,
have to be really careful about where you get it from, not going to like the corner stores. I remember at one point, I can't read because I was in Manassas. There was K2. You could buy K2 at like a regular gas station.
girl, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's
You
the
could like,
letters and the
I was
numbers?
like,
I'm
what
like,
is
okay.
this stuff? It's like all around, like, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was taken off the market and you couldn't get it because people were abusing it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so all
yep,
these
yep, yep,
variations of CBD are coming out. And like you said, really do your research, because you can end
Yeah.
up putting yourself in the hospital if you don't know what you're doing for sure.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it can be beneficial because it's really great for inflammation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they have the oils. I have a full bodied CBD oil that's
Uh-huh.
great for inflammation. Actually, full bodied CBD oils can be good for your skin as
Wow.
well. So
Yeah.
sometimes, I'll rub it on my skin. So
Yes.
it's, again, it's all about doing your research, understanding, and not just jumping on the bandwagon just to jump on the bandwagon.
Right. Right. That's for sure. I don't know if we have any comments, but I was just curious to know how everyone, what everyone thinks about that. If we do not have comments, we can go to a commercial break.
Yes.
And that is my favorite commercial, the A game. It is a supplement that can help with your immune system and vitality. And if you're interested in a sample, I wish they had some for women, because I sure enough would try
Yeah.
it. they only have it for men, so you need to reach out to Chuck, and he will send out samples if you're interested. So two or three, two or three.
Only 2, 3 samples available, you guys. That's it.
I like the way you do that.
So y'all better jump on it. 2,
You
3
better
samples.
hurry up. Hurry up.
Yep.
I'm so glad we had a really great talk tonight, and I really love talking about the science of just well-being and happiness.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own definition of happiness in it. And it's perfectly fine, however you decide. But we all know that it is not in materialistic things. We know that it's not in money. We know it's not in job titles. You can't take any of that with you when you go. So I believe it's in gratitude, giving back, and helping others, and and first starting off with your family. I think we had that conversation before. It's really important to start first with your family. Before we leave, I had a quote, and I do believe Dr. Robert Waldinger had mentioned this quote. It's a Mark Twain quote, and it says, "There isn't time, so brief is life, for bickerings, apologies, heartburnings, callings to the account. There is only time for loving, and but an instant, so to speak, for that." So, all the fighting, the fussing, the apologies, just love one another. Let's try to figure out how to make things work in relationships, friendships. Let's try to figure out ways that we can all obtain happiness together.
So what he said, what I liked to your point, is he said some of the ways that you can do that is replace screen time, right, with actually interacting with each other. If you're a couple, reconnecting over date nights. Even, you're, a single person, getting together with friends, you know what I mean? So like being really intentional about relationships, reconnecting with family members. So there are things that we can do. And, I think you're right, Izzy. We tend to think of happiness as what is it we can obtain from a materialistic standpoint, or even, people. Oh, if I'm with this person, I'm going to be happy. If I'm with this person, I'm going to be happy. But is it an automatic thing, or are you willing to put in the time and the effort to, whether it's a romantic relationship or just friendships, are you willing to put in the time and the effort and the work? Because we all know that relationships are messy, but to intentionally be like, okay, how can I make this person's day today? This person came across my mind. What can I do And that's one thing that I heard before, and it always stuck with me when they talk to couples about, their longevity and being happy together. It seems like the couples that are really intentional about what can I do to make my other half life easier or
Right.
happier, you know what I mean? And
Right.
and not just kind of fall into this day-to-day routine all the time and
Right.
this whole thing around expectation,
Yeah. And not
So
expecting anything back. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
and
just
not
doing
expecting
it.
anything like a true, like, I know this makes you happy, so I'm gonna do it, and period
Right.
dot. So, and I think again, from romantic relationships to friendships, that's really important. So
Yeah. And to
so we
tag on
should
to that,
practice
never make a person your happiness because they will disappoint you every single time.
that.
You know
Yeah,
how
yeah,
people say
yeah,
that
'cause
this
people are
person
human.
makes you're right.
Yeah,
They can make you happy, but not to the point where you're relying on them to bring
or
you joy.
happiness. I
Only
agree.
you can bring you joy. That will definitely cause any relationship, friendship, family, work relationship just out the door. It'll fail
Right.
immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
thank you for joining me today. We always have these good chats, these little chats.
yeah, it was good. It was I look forward to tonight. So let's look at some of we have one comment that
Okay.
popped up.
Charles Blakely says you have to be whole when you come into a relationship. That is super true.
Ooh,
That
yeah,
is super true. I remember this gentleman, I never saw him again. I worked for this tech company. He had given me this book and this tape, and he said, you need to watch this because, and I was like dating at the time, and he was just like, you need to watch this so you can become more of you before you go into a relationship. And he was like, there's
right,
some things you need to have to come to the table so you can meet that special person. You know what I mean?
right,
He's like, career, of course, but you need to develop some things within yourself as far as like, attitude. And it just went on. But it was the best book. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was by like Vanessa Bynum or something like that. And I really enjoyed the video. And then there was a book that went with it as well. But I learned that there were some things that I needed to do as a person to actually connect with the person that was meant to be with
yeah.
me on every relationship. And this is across the board with friendships as well.
I agree,
Yeah.
and I think the coming. I feel like it's fairly recent where people have gotten that epiphany about coming in whole into a relationship because you'd always heard like 50-50, right?
Right.
50-50 everything. And but I think one of the challenges of coming into a relationship whole is a lot of people don't spend time with themselves, right?
Right.
To know who they are, especially if you're always jumping, around, or you just don't spend that time. Like, what do you like to do? What are
Right.
the things now at the same time? For me personally, I feel like I have gone through relationships that have helped me to realize who I am. You know what I mean? So I
Yes.
always feel
Yes.
like, relationships are not perfect. They're going to
Right.
end, but what can you learn from the relationship about yourself? And
Right.
not always constantly like blaming the other person and being mad at the other person and being focused on that and that. But what can you learn about yourself so that you can continue? And it should be a continuous journey, not like okay, well, I'm whole today. I'm ready to
Right.
be, you know what I mean? Like we have to be because I feel like we're constantly learning, but
Right.
but at some point I do think you get mature and you're like, okay, well, this is who I am, and I need to be with someone, whether it's a romantic relationship or the friends I hang around that kind of fit into who I am and the things that I value and the things I like to do and what makes me laugh and what makes me, cry. But a
Yeah.
lot of people don't spend time enough to really discover that. But
Right.
wholeheartedly agree. You have to be whole when you come into a relationship.
Yes,
And
for
then
sure.
the next comment we have.
Oh, we have more. Charles Blakely says that's the key, fixing yourself before taking your brokenness into another relationship. That's deep.
Yeah,
We should talk about that. That is true. You know what I mean? Like just
yeah,
across the board. You and because I know biblically they say, if you're unevenly yoked. And to me, that's just like if your significant other didn't travel, but you travel, so you're whole in that area. You're just like, you've been across the world and done this, but they didn't have growth in that area. You've
Yes.
been into friendships and you've communicated with other people. This person has not. They're kind of broken in that area. You're whole in that area. So
Right.
when they want to go out and be a part of a crew, you're like, dude, I did that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
there's that imbalance that's constantly there. And just to, yeah, that's just enough. We got to do, that's a good show. We should talk about
Yeah,
that.
no, we really do. I remember I dated this guy very briefly,
Mhm.
girl. Like my relationship, my sorry, let's just flash it back to my idea of going out to eat, and his idea of going out to eat was two completely different things. I'm like, we have to keep going to these dive bars. You know what I mean? Like,
Ooh. Oh, girl.
I know that's not what I mean. It's deeper than that, of course, but then at the same time, it's kind of like again, finding people that, and it sounds mean to say it, but
Right.
I have learned that if you think it's mean, it is what it is. But finding people at your level or higher than where you want, that will inspire you to go. Because this whole reaching down, the pulling people up, I'm too old for that. I can't. I cannot.
The way you said girl, everything you just said was all in there. I felt it deep in my soul.
But yeah, I mean, but it's true. You got to know, but you have to know yourself. But if I didn't have the experiences that I had to, traveling or doing this or communicating with different people, I mean, there's some people that aren't comfortable going to the other side of town. So I've been there, I've known people like that too. That's kind of like, oh, you go over there, that's, we don't do that, And I'm like, well, you don't do that. And apparently I'm not going to be doing it with you. So
I know, right? Listen.
good.
We are going to have another show. We're going to talk about that.
All
This right here, I could go on and on and on, and I can go back and talk about all those things. And now, but the good thing is that you can laugh about it. You can laugh about it and just be like, oh, well, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It wasn't learning, girl. It wasn't learning. I was like, if I sit on one more bar stool, Charles Brakeley says, sorry, on a date. Okay. Sometimes that comes with age and going through the broken processes several times over. Yeah, I agree. Like for me, I don't mind. Some people, they want a perfect relationship the first thing out. You know what I mean? For me, I don't mind, of course, going through it. It's kind of something, but I've grown to appreciate, like, okay, it doesn't have to be, I'm not looking for that perfect person. So, if you want to go out on a date, let's go out on a date, see how I'll try. Oh, nope, that didn't work. Okay, well, why didn't it work for me? Etc. And then learning and just kind of learning. But I don't want to be doing that the rest of my life. Like at some point, stake is in the ground and I'm ready to live life with someone. So
no, we will talk about this because I think that we should talk about that and the fact that relationships and their extended family too. But here we go. So LinkedIn at Feel Good Talk. If you guys want to hook up with us, we're at LinkedIn at Feel Good Talk, Facebook at Feel Good Talk, YouTube at FGT Mind, Body, Soul, and Business, Instagram at feel.goodtalk. And you can email us at feelgoodtalk113@gmail.com. We also have a website, which is www.feelgoodtalk.net. And I think we're going to, I think it's coming up. Maybe not.
All right. So
we have shows all throughout the week, and you guys definitely check us out.
We want to thank you for joining us today. And love you guys. We'll see you next week.